Expats, it's Kalie here from Expats Everywhere, and today I'm sitting with Lizzy, and she's going to talk to us about what it's like as an expat transitioning from one country to another. So Lizzy, why don't you go ahead and tell us where you are right now and what's going on in your life?
Yeah, so I'm currently in Singapore. I have about a month left here that I'm teaching, and then in the beginning of August I'll be moving to Vienna to teach at an international school there.
Okay, so Lizzy is a teacher and she's moving international schools, but this is good information for anyone who's an expat who might be moving to a different country. So let's see what she has to say. So right now you have about a month left, and how are you feeling? What are you going through? Explain what that is like with that transition.
Yeah, so I would say at this point I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to my transition. I'm just enjoying the last few weeks I have left here, just going to my favorite places, spending time with friends. But I'm kind of over the process of the application of looking for an apartment and all that new stuff that I had to do for my transition. So I'm to the point where I'm just enjoying my last few weeks here.
Okay, good. So we'll back up to what that was like, but before, you said that you're going to all these other places. Did you make a list of things you wanted to do as you exit, or what was that process like?
Yeah, so it was kind of a mental list of what I want to do, and I basically thought about the places that I've heard about or that I've wanted to go to and I haven't, and I've just made that a priority to go to those different places. But it's mostly visiting places that I enjoy and that I've been to several times, so kind of my last time of going to all of my favorite places.
Okay, so there's some good advice, expats. You want to maybe make a list, mental list, or written down about places that you haven't been to yet that you want to go to, but also circling back to some of those favorites. And do you do those alone or you do those with friends?
Yeah, I do those with friends. I prefer to do that with friends, yeah.
Okay, so also making sure that you're getting all that friend time in before you leave, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go back to where you said you had all of these transition things that you had to do for your new place. What was that like?
Yeah, so I had to, where I'm going, it's best if I get an apartment before I actually get there. So I had the school that I'm moving to, they sent me a list of different apartments that they have that teachers are moving out of. And they sent me those apartments and information on that and a way to get a hold of the landlords and talk to them if I was interested. So I went through that process, talking to the landlord, looking through the contract, and that transition with that. As far as transitioning into getting a visa for Vienna, that process was quite time consuming. It took about a month to do that whole process, and I did that a little over a month ago. I went through all of that, so I had to fill out the visa information. I had to get my original diploma, my original birth certificate. I had to get a police background check of all the countries I've lived in. So I had to do it of the US and of Singapore and get those appointments done. And I had to go to the embassy here in Singapore to drop off all that paperwork, which they then send to Vienna for the embassy there. So that whole process took about a month. A lot of it my parents had to help me with because I couldn't do it from here. They had to do it in the US. So it was quite time consuming and very stressful during that time.
Okay, so keep that in mind. Give yourself plenty of time as you transition, and maybe have a contact from your home country that can help with certain things. But if you give yourself plenty of time, then it won't be as stressful, right? Mm-hmm. But you're going to need a lot of documentation. You have to do fingerprints, right? And going to your embassy. So just keep that in mind as you are in your transition, as you're leaving the current place and going to the new place. There will be a lot of running around, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as you go to this new place, what are some things you're looking forward to? How are you feeling with the move? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited just to be in Europe and travel. I've heard such great things about Vienna and just the area I'm in general, that it's so easy to go around by train. And so I'm mostly looking forward to the traveling there. I'm also going to be in a different type of school than what I currently am in. It will teach the IB curriculum, which I am not certified in, and the school will help me get that certification.
Oh, great.
And yeah, so I'm a little nervous about that, the different type of teaching that I'll be doing. But yeah, overall I'm excited to have an apartment that will already be there when I get there, and meeting the people I'll be working with and making those new friendships. It's both exciting and a little scary as well.
Right, good. I think which is quite normal when you move somewhere, right? You've got the exciting part and the scary part, right? So logistically, as you leave here, what are some things that you have to take care of before you leave Singapore?
So with our apartment, we had to do little things like getting the curtains professionally cleaned. We had to get the aircon professionally cleaned. We had to talk to our landlord about the date that we're actually moving out, because we're moving out before the end of our contract. So figuring out how we pay the rest of the months we have left of that contract. I have to end my phone contract and my internet contract. And for both those, I have to end them before the actual dates. So I'll have to either pay a penalty or pay through to the end of that contract. I'll have to close my bank account, which I will probably do the last week I'm here. I'll have to wire my money back to my account in the US. So a lot of things that go into it.
Lots of things. So when did you start this process? Like, how long is all this taking?
So the phone and the internet and the bank, that will I'll probably all do that the last week. The curtain cleaning and the rent and all that, probably about a month before you leave is when you should start looking into that and talking to your landlord and figuring out all those little details.
Good. So keep that in mind, that you want to, again, give yourself time so it's not super stressful. And are you leaving right when your contract ends for work, or are you giving yourself some time?
Yeah, so I've been told by lots of people that I should take advantage of the country I'm in before I actually leave it. And so I will be going on a short trip for a few days at the end of the school year in Southeast Asia, and then I'll fly back to the US. So I'm giving myself a day or two after that trip to just enjoy Singapore and one last evening here and day here before I fly out.
Okay, so probably a personal preference on whether you want to leave right away or you want to stay around for a little bit. Good. So let's go all the way back to before you had this job.
Yep.
What was the job process like, searching, things like that? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the process I actually started a year and a half ago. So I started it, a year and a half ago. It was probably back in September. I created a Search Associates account. And with that account, I was able to look at schools and look at openings and see the different information about each school, such as salary, benefits, moving expenses, the size of the school, things like that. And so through Search Associates, I emailed a bunch of schools. I sent my cover letter. And then through that process, I got Skype interviews. And so I did quite a few Skype interviews. And if I made it past that, then it would be additional Skype interviews, or for some schools, they could fly you to their school and pay for those expenses, and you interview with them when they've narrowed it down to just a few candidates left. So that process started a year and a half ago, and I wasn't finding exactly what I was looking for. I preferred a school in Europe. I wanted a school that was a little larger than what I currently am, just for more opportunities professionally with the school. And so I was a little picky with the schools that I was interviewing with, and I just wasn't getting what I wanted, and I knew that I would be happy staying here at least an additional year and working here one more year. And so I ended up saying no to Search Associates, that I didn't want to pursue that any further. And I told my school, at the time I had told my school maybe, when I signed the contract, because we do the contracts for international schools, you sign those contracts very early on. So I initially signed the contract as a maybe if I would stay, and then I did the whole search process. And then I went back to the school and I said I would actually like to stay here an additional year. So I stayed here an additional year. I started the process again the following September. By then I had all my information on Search Associates, so it was really simple, really easy to get started again looking at schools. And again, I was very picky. I knew what I wanted and I didn't want to settle. And I knew that I didn't want to stay here another year. I knew that I wanted something new and different change, and so I was willing to be open to opportunities but still be selective in that process. And so I heard back from several schools, sent my resume to, I had probably like 30 schools, I would say, sent it everywhere, and had several interviews. I heard from them beginning of March, and it was a really quick process. So I got an email from them, and they wanted, the principal wanted to interview me, and so I interviewed with the principal through Skype. And then a week later, I heard back from them, and they said, we want you to interview with the director. And so I interviewed with the director. A week later, I heard back from them, and they offered me the position. In the process of going through that, I had interviewed with another school that was also in Europe, and I was very much interested in. But their process had taken very long. So I did a recorded interview where they sent me questions, and I had to record my response, and then I submitted that. So it wasn't person to person, it was just a recording that I sent off. And it was a rather large school, so I think that process just made it quicker for them in general. But so I sent that off, and I didn't hear back from them for about a month. And in that month, I heard from this school in Vienna, and they offered me the position. And before I accepted the position, I actually heard back from this school, and they wanted to have another interview. And I thought, well, I haven't signed yet. I'll do another interview. So I did another interview with this school, and again, a couple weeks went by and I still hadn't heard anything. And by this point, I signed with the school in Vienna because I knew I wanted to be there, and I liked that they were efficient and quick with this process, and I didn't want to keep waiting. And so, yeah, I signed with them. And then as soon as I signed with them, I heard back from this other school in Europe, and they wanted to fly me to their school and have an in-person interview, and they would pay for all the expenses. But by that time, it was end of April, and I thought this is too late in the game. I have already committed to this school. You have just taken too long. So I said, I'm sorry, but I've accepted a different position, and that's what ended up happening.
Right. So that might happen. Some schools take a lot longer, especially some of these bigger schools. They have so many applicants that they can afford to do that. But maybe they're missing out on good candidates because they are taking too long. So you just have to decide if you want to wait around for that and what that risk is for you.
Yeah.
So we see that Lizzy was a little picky her first year because she said that she could live in Singapore one more year. So again, that's something you'll have to decide. Do you want to be picky, or should you lower your expectations? But for here, it worked out for Lizzy because in her second year, she found a place she wanted to be. So you use Search Associates as teachers looking for international schools or just big schools all over the world. Search Associates is a good one to use. It's a paying subscription, so take a look at that. What do you think of Search Associates?
I would say it's a really good database to use if you're wanting to know more information about each school, openings that are available for your position. So I think it was great in that I was able to see all the different schools, especially schools in Europe. They have a lot of schools in Europe in their system. And so I was able to see any school that had a math opening, and I was able to see information such as salary, benefits, the makeup of the school, the demographics of the students and of the teachers. So I really enjoyed that part of Search Associates. Cost-wise, I don't know if the benefits outweigh the cost, because ultimately with most of the schools, I then had to personally email those schools and apply online through each school's website. So even though I put up a bunch of my information on Search Associates, I still had to again put that same information out for each school. So that process was not that great. I had to do applications again, even though I'd already done all this information on my Search Associates account. So in that respect, it wasn't the greatest tool to use, but I got a job out of it.
Okay, so something to keep in mind. It doesn't necessarily streamline things, but it just helps get in touch with some of these other schools. Okay, so finally, what would be some advice you have for expats who are transitioning? Not just teachers, but any expats who are transitioning from one country to another country and will continue to be expats.
I would say start the process as soon as possible. If you are applying to schools and you are interviewing with schools and you do hear back from a school, the sooner the better. You're going to get a better selection, and you're going to probably get more interviews if you start the process earlier rather than later. So like I said, I started the process in September, which seems ridiculously early, but we sign contracts for most schools, they sign them between October and January. So schools know when their teachers are leaving between October and January, and they start interviewing during that process. So getting stuff done as soon as possible, collecting things like your birth certificate, your diplomas, your transcripts, getting that because you never know when you're actually going to need that. And it's a pain to have your parents or someone you know collect all that information for you, throwing them into that mix. So if you can do that, if you're home for a summer or you're home for Christmas, collecting that information, making sure you get references, you get letters from references, because some schools will ask for a reference letter, and you don't want to have to say, well, wait a week or two for me to get that reference to write a letter. Get it sooner rather than later. Yeah, that would be my main advice, is just start on the process as early as possible, because then you'll have more schools that are interested in you.
Awesome. All right, so Lizzy, thanks so much for talking to us about transitioning as an expat today. Hope you guys liked it. Comment below on your transition and any advice that you have. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Bye.